Willkommen zurück zu Spellforce 3, Kampagne mit Vhyozz.
Hallo.
Letzte Folge haben wir hier die Menschen-Questline, sag ich mal, beendet. Und haben die einige da wieder befreit, bis noch nicht. Ja, hat es noch in unserer Rune gebunden, aber ja, wir können wieder zurück
Ja.
auf die Weltkarte, beziehungsweise sogar nach Mullandir, weil wir haben ja sonst nichts mehr, außer dumme Nebenquests, die wir nicht brauchen. Also Nebenquests, die aber nur nervig sind und keine richtigen. Ansonsten haben wir nur Hauptquests, deswegen würde ich sagen, nach Mullandir.
Ja. Mullandir, der Nexus. Die steinernen Türen fallen hinter euch zu, während ihr durch den überwucherten Bogen tretet und Stille euch umgibt, damit ihr hier keine Stille im Wartebildschirm ertragen müsst. Dann spürt ihr eine Präsenz, eine Macht, lange vergessen, die auf jemanden oder etwas wartet, um sie aus dem Schlummer zu reißen. Der Nexus ist nah. So.
Ey, diese Ausrufezeichen auf dieser Map, ey. Also es wird. Ich sage jetzt schon mal, es wird eine Talk-Folge.
Tobi, ich habe ein Ausrufezeichen. Tobi.
Ja, ich rede dich zuerst an, warte.
Yes, Corporal? How can I help?
Well, there's something I've been meaning to ask you. How did you become an assassin?
Why do you want to know?
No particular reason, I suppose. I'm just curious.
Huh. I see. In short, my mother sold me. And after an incident, my owner noticed my talents. He started to train me to carry out jobs for him. And when I was 17, he had an accident. I've been an independent assassin ever since.
Your mother sold you? But where? Why?
Because she needed the coin, and already had 4 children to feed. And as for your first question, where there is demand, there is a market, particularly in a big city like Greyfell. It's not as uncommon as you might believe.
So, who is this man who bought you?
I won't talk about that. This chapter of my past is done, and I want it to stay buried.
I understand.
I'm glad you do. So, tell me, Pariah, how did you become the betrayer's child in the first place? It's rare for a child to defy their own father.
It's complicated.
You don't want to share this with me, do you? Well, I will not pressure you. Either way, is there anything else you need? Yes, Corporal?
About you being an assassin. You said that you might be willing to tell me more about that at another time. How about now?
I'm still not certain. The question really is, do you want to know? It might change something.
Well, I wouldn't have asked otherwise. Tell me.
All right. Where should I begin? Do you remember what I told you about that man who bought me from the Greyfell Bazaar? My owner? I also told you that after an incident, he discovered my talents and made me an assassin.
I remember. But what does that have to do with your morality?
It's complicated. The incident took place at a festivity. A lot of highly influential people were there, servants of the crown, wealthy merchants, nobles. My master knew all of Greyfell's elites. As always, at these festivities, it was my and the other slaves' responsibility to ensure the guests' well-being. It must have been close to midnight when a man took me into his chambers. I'd learned to play along years ago, because resisting only made it worse. For some reason, that man wanted me to tell him that I loved him. I did, but he kept on telling me that I should say it like I really mean it. When I couldn't, he got angrier and started choking me. I had almost lost consciousness when I felt something break. I don't know how else to put it. It was as if my mind simply cracked open, like a crystal ball smashed against a mirror. And all of a sudden, that man and I weren't separate entities anymore.
I don't follow.
My magic, my dreamweavery, that's when it broke free. You probably don't know this, but the only way to become a dreamweaver is by shattering your mind. You are opening yourself to the thoughts and emotions of others, but you lose your own.
What happened to the man?
I killed him. It wasn't a conscious choice, looking back. I even think that shattering my mind was my body's way of ensuring survival. I closed my eyes, reached out for the man's mind, and just crushed it. The man gasped, lost balance, and fell right off the bed. At first I was disoriented. But then I felt it, for the first time. The urge.
To kill him?
Yes. To massacre him. Hear his screams. To see his life taken by my hand. I grabbed a lantern that was standing on a bedside table and knelt over him, and... well, you can picture the rest. To get back to your original question, that urge, it stuck with me. I think that the moment when my mind shattered and I became a dreamweaver was what unlocked it. Ever since then, I've found violence and bloodshed to be ecstatic, erotic even. And when I kill someone, like I killed that man, I feel alive. Actually, it's one of the few times I am capable of feeling any—
And this is—
Yes. My master introduced me into the craft. Probably because he knew that my dreamweavery had changed me. I wasn't just a slave child anymore. I was a weapon now. More than that, even. I needed what these new tasks my master sent me on provided me with. It had become a basic need of mine. Of course, I briefly considered changing my profession after my master had his accident. But I didn't. Killing is something I need, as much as a child needs the love of his mother. If I don't feed my urge, I will die. Not physically, but mentally. I just know this.
Ja, sehr ungesund hier, was ihr da macht.
That's a lot to take in.
I know. Now tell me, Tahar. Do you regret asking me this question? Knowing all this, do you think I'm a monster?
You're not.
Really? That's unexpected. Anyway, I would like some time for myself now. I hope you understand.
Jo.
Tahar, what is it?
There's one thing I've been wondering about. After we parted at the hideout, what exactly happened? How did you and my father part ways?
Good question. I guess it all started with the relics, the tomes. You remember them, right?
Yes. He was hoping they'd help him to win the war.
Exactly. And there was this one moment when he found the 5th tome, when I came to a realization. You see, there were all those bodies, enemies, but also many of our people. We had shed so much blood, Tahar. But Asamo, he didn't care. If there was any grief in his eyes, I couldn't see it. And as dramatic as it may sound, that's when I finally understood that we had lost our cause. This wasn't about ideals, about us mages anymore. It was about him. Whatever his...
And that's the reason Zane, Helena, and I betrayed him. Come on, do you really want to tell us you didn't see that before? The tomes were all about power.
I knew it was about power, but Asamo always told us that he would use that power for the greater good. And it's not that far off. I mean, can't you imagine? With the power of the tomes, we could have united the world. Even made it a better one. No more persecution of the deviant. No more wars. No more suffering.
Maybe. But my father certainly wasn't the one who should lead it.
Maybe not. Tahar, what is it?
You knew about my mother, didn't you? That's what you hinted at back at the forge, before we set...
Well, the answer is yes and no. I had suspicions, let us call it that, but they weren't enough to go on, and I had no idea your mother was connected to the blood burn.
You should have told me.
Is that so? And exactly what, that I believe you might be the result of your father's experiments? That you're the offspring of some long-dead, forgotten race? Tell me, Tahar, what for? I mean, at best, you wouldn't have believed me. And at worst, it would have cost you your sanity. So no, I don't think I should have told you. I didn't know if these suspicions had any substance at all. And I would have been at great risk, especially back then when you were still part of the rebellion.
Well, I guess it doesn't matter anymore.
No. And I didn't get a chance to say this yet, but I'm glad you made it, Tahar. We need you in this.
Corporal? Need anything?
You never told me why you fled Finn and Mehr.
Fair enough. You've given me little reason to distrust you, so... Oh well. Let's just get this over with. I already told you about my father, how to him I had always been more of an asset. Well, after my father died, I decided to become a novice.
A novice?
Someone aspiring to be a priest of Elen. I don't know why I did it. It was something my father had always considered a backup plan if an arranged marriage wouldn't work out. Part of it was probably because obeying my father was all I knew at that time.
But something happened.
Yes. In my first year, I fell in love. That crazy, hot-blooded, head-over-the-heels kind of love that the bards all sing about. The boy felt the same way, and for the next year it was, well, it was perfect. It was the two of us against the world. Maybe you know that feeling.
Huh. And I guess your romance didn't end well.
You guess right. But it was more than that. You know, I told you how I always felt estranged around other people. I knew how to put on a smile, how to make myself fit in, but it was always fake. Shallow. With him, it was different. Dramatic as it may sound, I thought I had finally found someone who understood me. Then there was the novitiate. Despite all the time I sunk into doing the crazy things lovers often do, I never failed as a student. Or, no, let's put it another way. I was the best, in every aspect.
Which didn't sit well with some people.
No. And eventually, they made sure I felt it. They excluded me from everything, stared at me when I walked by. It hurt, yes, but I convinced myself it didn't. I've always been good at that.
But what happened?
My lover's friends started manipulating him. Telling him that I only saw him as my pet. That he was a failure, and that I only kept him around to feel good about myself.
What? And he listened to them? That's pathetic.
Maybe. But he was young, same as I, and young people often do irrational things. You see, we novices all knew that only 4 out of 20 will be granted priesthood at the end of our training. And being a failed novice leaves you with a mark you'll keep for the rest of your life. It all looked peaceful on the surface, but beneath that it was an arena. And these other novices, they made sure my friend became aware of that fact. To him, I started being a rival as well. And do you want to know the biggest joke of it all? I didn't see it. The idea that, I don't know, that he would listen to them. That he would ever reach a point where he'd put what we had below his hurt pride and his fears. It never crossed my mind.
So what happened?
Well, he knew I was curious by nature, so one night when we were in bed together, he suddenly asked me if I wanted to go on an adventure. Of course I said yes. So we snuck out into the cloister's courtyard. It was beautiful. The night was cloudless, and the old oak, our cloister shrine, had just begun to bloom. We made our way to the library building, but of course the door was locked. Out of nowhere, he pulled a key, grinning at me, and opened it. It was insane. As you can imagine, priests aren't known for being lenient towards these kinds of trespassings. We were risking our novitiate, and I didn't even know the reason. But I liked it. And we were doing it together, weren't we? It was exciting. He took my hand and we went to the High Priestess's office. We opened the door and went inside, and there he finally told me what we were here for. To open the grimoire. The High Priestess's spellbook.
Whatever that is, it sounds like that was a terribly...
It was. It was a stupid idea. And if I hadn't been so blind, so bloody naive, I should have seen it by then. But I didn't.
What did he ask you to do?
To open it and try to read one of the spells. He teased me. Told me that I wouldn't be able to do it. You know, saying it like that, it sounds so bloody stupid, doesn't it? But again, I was too blind. I laughed. I wanted to impress him, so I gave him a kit. Long story short, I lost control. The spell was too much for me to handle, and it misfired. One moment I was staring at the pages, the next one, the library was aflame, and my lover was gone.
I'm sorry.
Don't be. I was the one too stupid to see it coming.
How far did that fire spread?
Not far. It was put out before it could do real damage. But, of course, that was the end of novitiate. I was thrown into the cell of shame and sentenced to 12 years of polishing prayer banks and cleaning floors in the shrine.
Your lover, did he regret it?
I think so. The only bloody gratification I ever got from this. But even if he would have confessed and begged me to take him back, I couldn't have. All that connection, that trust, it was gone. Worse, it was tainted.
But you never did polish those prayer banks, am I right?
No. In the night after the trial, they still let me sleep in my chamber. Thoughtlessness, I suppose, or maybe they simply didn't care. I got my things, left, and never came back. So, here it is, the whole truth. No dark secrets, no assassinations, no necromantic rituals. Just a plain old broken heart. Compared with all that shit you had to go through, it almost sounds ludicrous.
It doesn't. Being betrayed by someone you trust often hits the hardest.
Yeah, I guess. It's just, I don't get it. How could he give all that up? I mean, there was something between us, you know? Something rare, something precious. But no, he threw it all away for his fucking vanity. But in a way, it's just a continuation of what I've always known. Wherever I am, I'm a stranger. People don't like me, and I don't like them.
For what it's worth, I'm glad our paths crossed.
Yeah, me too, Corporal. I'd like some space now. I hope you don't mind. Let's talk later.
Yay, neuer Skill.
Wie gesagt, alle Skills hier. Wegen seinen Nutzen hier.
Corporal Tahar, thank you for coming by. And thank you again for giving me this opportunity.
Nothing to thank me for. How's Henry?
Good. I just received a letter from his mother. She called me a fool after I told her what I had done for that miracle potion. And I guess she's right. Either way, I've had a talk with some of the Moorhere elves already. Their architecture is slightly different than the classic Finnon-Mere buildings, but I'm nonetheless convinced that just let me know what needs doing and I'll take care of it.
Perfect.
Eventuelles Bauplanzeug.
Nice.
Da kann man eigentlich irgendwas verkaufen. Ah, die Rüstung haben wir doppelt. So, Kosten gesenkt. Geil.
Geil.
Im Bild passiv auf ihrem Auge Revu als den Stein berührt. Eine riesige humanoide Gestalt, die einen gewaltigen Drachen bekämpft. Ein mögendes Gefühl bleibt zurück und der Drang zu verstehen, was ihr eben gesehen habt. Cool.
I still can't believe this really happened.
Sonst nichts bei ihr.
Yeah, do you need something? I'm a tad busy.
Jetzt kriegen sie mir so genervt, ey.
That armor you're wearing looks quite special. Is it from Windwall?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, it's from Windwall. I forged it myself. Why do you ask?
Well, our smiths might be able to forge you a better one. It looks quite worn.
What? No. No, that's not gonna happen.
Why not? Fair enough.
Ups, da hab ich
I'll
wieder.
let you know if I have some resources to spare. I'd still like to know more about how you ended up in Nortender.
Bugger and blast. And here I was hoping you'd forgotten. All right, I'll tell you. But only under one condition.
Yes?
That I get to ask you a personal question too.
Then we have a deal. Go ahead, I'm listening.
Fair enough. I was born in the Windwall Mountains.
You don't say.
Sorry, still sorting out my thoughts. It's been a long time since I last told this story to anyone. All right, one more time. As you can imagine, I was born in Windwall, a child of the rocks.
Come again?
A true dwarf, as some would say. Born in the buried city, not on the outside as the traders and farmers are. My family was quite privileged. Not nobility, but my mother and father led a big smeltery which supplied one of the finest smithies. Moon silver weaponry. Ever heard of it?
I think so. The commanders of the Royal Army use them.
Figures. Well, my childhood was a rather unremarkable one. I had 2 brothers and a sister, and even though I was the oldest child, I was always the most quiet one. I learned quickly how to wield an axe, and I still know how to do it, but I never took pleasure in it. The same goes for my parents' craft. For some reason, Nihalf had given me a talent for metallurgy, but not the desire to use it. Instead, my biggest love was always made with ink. Books.
But I assume your parents didn't approve of that.
Oh no, they didn't mind. I had 3 siblings who could do the job as well as I, so the future of our family was secured. On the contrary, they were quite accepting, which wasn't usual amongst dwarves, especially not those in Windwall.
Dwarves are traditionalists, aren't they?
Oh yeah, they are. They love their brawls, they love their ale, and they love their metal crafting. And they never miss a chance to tell the outside world just how much they do.
Warum sind Zwerge eigentlich nie im Fantasy-Universum gleich? Gefühlt zumindest.
Ja.
Well, to be honest, when I think of dwarven culture,
Aber
that's
alles hat
exactly
Ursprung in
what comes to my
Tolkien.
mind.
Muss man wieder anhängen.
See? And that's the problem. There's always diversity in every race. There are soft-hearted orcs, there are elves who don't give a damn about the white tree, and there are humans with... well, you get the point. What I'm trying to say is, many dwarves love living these traditions, but there are some like me who just don't fit in. This is one of the reasons why I appreciate you and this group so much, Tahar. Aenir's tools or not, we're all pariahs, in one way or another.
Man muss aber dazu sagen, Tobi, ich glaube, es
Ja.
gäbe einen Aufschrei, wenn die Zwerge auf einmal ganz anders wären.
Das stimmt wiederum.
Also wenn
ja.
du in einem Fantasy-Spiel jetzt baumliebende, vegane Zwerge hättest, ich glaube, das wird so einen Shitstorm geben.
So, what happened? Why did you leave Windwall?
I'm getting there, Tahar. When I came of age, I found work in the Windwall Library. That time was also when I deepened my knowledge of the Shapers. I devoured all the books there were, and bought whatever writings the merchants brought in. They smiled at me, talked of me as the strange bird, but I didn't care. The more I read, the more spellbound I became, and the more I dreamed of journeying through Io to solve all those mysteries not yet uncovered.
Huh. And what kept you from doing just that?
Well, 2 things. First of all, my attachment to my family. Secondly, Gilak,
Gilead?
my, partner.
You had a partner?
Yeah, we met... I'd rather not go into detail too much. Fact is, we lived together for 6 years. He was very dear to me. Let's put it that way.
I understand. But something happened, didn't it?
Yeah. The Blackstone Rebellion. Ever heard of it?
No.
A coup. A small group of rebels tried to overthrow the royal house. It was bound to fail from the beginning. The rebels were anti-traditionalist and wanted to establish a new order, where it's the people who have the power, not the nobility. Gilak was one of these rebels.
Oh.
Yeah. At first, before the coup, they tried to raise awareness by giving underground speeches. A noble endeavor, but not at all thought through. Most dwarves just don't care about politics as long as they can have their mugs of ale. First, he didn't ask me to participate, but the more sour things went, the more he started pushing me. At one point, we had a fight. When he asked me to steal money from my family to support the movement, it was terrible. Finally, push came to shove and he told me of the coup. He knew that despite my occupation, I was a remarkable fighter and Earthshaper, which is why he asked me to fight alongside him. You can make a difference, that's what he said. By Nihalf, he was just so naive. He really thought it would be like in the old legends, a group of courageous dwarfs fighting their way to Algrim Castle with me at his side. I just don't. Forgive me. It's strange to talk about it like this.
It's okay. Thank you for trusting me.
Yeah, sure. You can imagine how torn I was. I knew he'd die if the coup took place, but I also knew that I couldn't stop him. When I told him he was mad, he called me a coward, a delusional bookworm, who'd rather spend his whole life dreaming about the past and changing the present. And then he left. The next day, I found him beheaded by a royal guard. They didn't even make it to the castle stairs.
I'm sorry, Iskrin.
It's all right.
What happened then?
I ran. Not only because I'd rather have died than return to that empty house of ours, but also because they would have arrested me too. Our relationship wasn't a secret, and in their eyes, I was as eccentric as Gilak and his friends. And we all know how dangerous eccentrics are, don't we? I left my family a letter, telling them not to come after me, bought a horse, and rode as far as it would take me before collapsing. That was 9 years ago. I haven't returned ever since.
I see. And since then, you've been studying the Shapers?
Yeah. If there really is, as people say, a silver lining to everything, then this would be it. I'm finally doing what I was too afraid to do back in Windwall. I'm living my dream. Though the price I paid for it was high. And you know what, Tahar?
What?
There's a third reason to my fascination with the Shapers I haven't told you about yet. It's Gilak. Stupid as it may sound, there's a part of me who wants to prove him wrong. To show him that the past that it can guide us towards a better world.
I see. Well, thank you for sharing this, Iskrin. I appreciate it.
Yeah. It felt good to talk about it. I didn't expect that. But you're not off the hook yet. The question, remember?
Right. Shoot.
Your past is even more unusual than mine. Growing up with a man like Isamu Tahar as your father? Without a mother? And then the whole thing with the Mage Rebellion? I know you've been through a lot. Now, I was wondering, if you could trade that past you've had for a different one, would you do it?
Frage. Obi? Da ist die Verbindung weg. Oh, bei mir gab's auch
Vorfälle.
eine kurze Pause.
Vorfälle passieren. Lebt deinen Traum. Ne, mit wahr, sorry.
Okay.
What?
There's a third reason to my fascination with the Shapers I haven't told you about yet. It's Gilak. Stupid as it may sound, there's a part of me who wants to prove him wrong. To show him that it can guide us towards a better world.
I see. Well, thank you for sharing this, Iskrin. I appreciate it.
Yeah. It felt good to talk about it. I didn't expect that. But you're not off the hook yet. The question, remember?
Right. Shoot.
Your past is even more unusual than mine. Growing up with a man like Isamu Tahar as your father? Without a mother? And then the whole thing with the Mage Rebellion? I know you've been through a lot. Now, I was wondering, if you could trade that past you've had for a different one, would you do it?
I wouldn't.
That surprises me, to be honest. But I think I understand. Either way, pleasure speaking with you. Hope this wasn't too grim for you, but then again, you asked for it. Give me some time now, will you?
Sure. Take care, Iskrin.
Eigene Fähigkeit. Ja, wir haben gefühlt nichts eingesammelt, dass es irgendeine Rüstung gibt.
Ja.
Egal.
Cool, die ganzen Backstories mal zu erfahren.
Ja, das auf jeden Fall. Wer ist er
By
nochmal?
the Guardians.
Also,
That was quite the journey, wasn't it? Wonderful place you found yourself here, Corporal. Wonderful.
Glad you like it. Did you have a look at the city's defense mechanisms yet? They might interest you.
Yes, actually I have. They are part of why I find this city so intriguing. I mean, I always knew the Shapers had some interesting weaponry, but this, it's amazing. I still don't understand why the Crown never showed much interest in these ruins in the first place. Anyway, I don't want to steal more of your precious time. As promised, I'll help you improve your siege machinery, catapults, ballistas, and the like. Though of course that'll cost you a little. Not for me, but for the material.
All right. I'll come by when I need something.
also viel Geld kosten würde.
Wo müssen die Money Sinks in jedem Spiel sein?
Das stimmt. So, Undergast. Oh, ich meine Undergast.
With Mullendeer? Yes. It's quite a sight. I still can't believe we're the first ones who found this place.
It seems unlikely, yes, but yet it happened. Iskrim, the dwarf, told me about it. He said that the rock illusion shielding the entrance vanished as soon as you spoke the words, and that it did not react to Iskrim himself. Tell me, Tahar, what do you make of that?
I don't know. It might have been coincidence.
That is true. I believe we stand on the verge of a change. Things have happened, Tahar. Things, the extent of which we have not even come close to comprehending. And they have set something in motion.
You're talking about the Bloodburn?
Among other things, yes. But as I said, there is more to it. All this, your journey, your role in what Rondar Lacane believes to be a vision sent by Aenir. It is only the beginning. But let us continue this discussion when I can give you more than vague, semi-prophetic statements.
All right. We'll talk later.
Why?
When something comes up. I'll go prepare for our next mission now.
Understood. Yes? What is it?
Back when we met, you told me about an internal disagreement, which led to many of the guild's mages leaving. What exactly happened?
Why do you want to know?
No particular reason.
I see. Well, simply put, the guild had two leaders until half a year ago, me and Lena. Lena and a lot of the other mages felt that they could uphold their neutrality no longer without sacrificing their integrity.
You're talking about the persecution of mages?
Yes, I am. As Lena said, they are crucifying us, burning us alive, putting masks on our heads that destroy our minds. If there's something wrong with the world, it's people who keep their heads down because they are afraid to stand in for what's right.
Quite the speech.
She was very emotional when it came to the topic, yes. However, her stance conflicted with everything the Creators Guild stands for. We preserve knowledge, push forward the boundaries of magic. We do not involve ourselves in power games and politics. Figuratively speaking, a fisher will never be a good military commander, just like a mage will never be a good politician.
Well, I understand the conflict.
Well, you are an empathetic man, so I would have been surprised if you did not. But these events lie in the past. There is no point in discussing them any further, though I had certainly hoped for a different outcome.
You seem bitter.
As I said, I had hoped for a different outcome.
Durchreden, Level up.
Tahar, what is it?
I'll be off.
Yes, what is it?
So, Undergast, when you told me about your split with Lena, I got the feeling that you were more than just colleagues.
You are asking if we were in love. Am I correct?
Well, yeah.
Then let me start by telling you that the term love is undefined and that theories about it conflict one another. I have read a lot of books on it, and I've studied the poems, and I've come to the conclusion that it is ultimately a primitive, carnal urge that people have come to romanticize for the emotions that come with it. I, myself, never felt it, and maybe that was because I saw the underlying mechanisms. I always found it strange how people overreact so strongly to such a simple emotion, and maybe that very fact stopped me from being able to feel these emotions at all.
Well, what are the underlying mechanisms?
The desire to reproduce with a fitting mate. In fact, the orcs have a very dry, rational view on this process, but for some reason humans, dwarves, and elves do not.
Love is more than just that.
Well, most people would agree with you, and I'm certain that in your subjective experience it is.
So, what you're saying is that you were never able to feel love, but then Lena came along and you did.
No, it was not that simple. What stood out in our relationship was that we connected. I've never felt that before. You see, Tahar, to me, the bonds people have always felt peculiar. And I am not like Yana. Her mind simply does not have the ability to feel these bonds anymore. She had them once, but then she lost them, as she became a dreamweaver. My brain is capable of feeling these things, but I am unable to connect with the outside world. I only have my own mind as a frame of reference. For example, when a person tells you yes, whereas he or she means no, you might be able to feel this discrepancy because you are able to empathize with her. I can't. To me, this person's distress would make no sense whatsoever. But then there was Lena. For some bizarre reason, she understood me and I understood her. Or at least, I thought that I did. It was as if this barrier, this shell that separates my mind from others, was pervious to her emotions. I know how strange it sounds, and I also have no explanation for why this was. Yet it changed me. All at once, I felt connected. Do you know this feeling, Tahar? You have traveled with these people for quite some time now. Is there anyone you were, well, fond of?
Well, yeah.
I see. Then you probably know how distracting such a feeling can be. To be honest, when I first became aware of that bond between Lena and me, I was horrified. I could not focus anymore. When I sat down to write my studies, I realized after hours that none of what I had written made sense at all.
Am I right to assume that your relationship ended with your disagreement over the Creators Guild abandoning its neutrality?
No, you misunderstand. We never had a relationship. Although the feelings were mutual and we, well, acted on them, we never felt the need to bind ourselves to some close-minded societal construct. But yes, you are correct. It was the disagreement that broke our bond. Quietly, she left and never returned again.
How do you feel about this?
That is a good question. I still think about her, almost every day. But the more time passes, the more this entire episode starts to feel like a vague, distant dream, the way an elder must feel about youth. I do not know how I would feel if I ever saw her again.
I can imagine. Well, thank you for trusting me with this, Undergast.
You have nothing to thank me for. If this conversation helped you get a better picture of me, I'm glad we had it. But there is one more thing I would like to ask you, Tahar.
Tell me.
Do you have regrets? Do you ever feel as if you could and should have acted differently than you did act?
Yes, I do.
I understand. You see, I've never told you this, but I find your resilience to be remarkable.
How so?
Well, it is no secret that you have endured a lot of pain, especially your early childhood must have made a mark on your psyche. But still, you did not give up.
Well, I'm doing what I can.
I can see that. Either way, I think we have spent enough time talking. We should get back to the tasks at hand.
We should. So long, Undergast.
Und doch mal.
Yes? What is it?
Are you alright? You seem distraught.
I am. The mentalists have told me what happened in Aenir's Blade. The fact that you met Lena, I do not know what to make of it. I wish I had been there. Tell me, did she say anything about me? Did you even tell her that you're traveling with me?
I didn't get the chance.
I feared as much. Well, I will talk to her followers. I did already see some familiar faces in the ones you brought here. If you don't mind, I would like some time to think now. If you wish, we can talk later.
Alright.
Sehr gut, so, jetzt haben wir noch. Machen gleich nach dem Dialog dann erstmal Folgenpause, aber den nächsten machen wir noch. Aber die kriegst Laberfolge und nächste Folge machen wir dann weiter mit dem Plot. Wobei ich auch ganz gerne mit dem Abgesandten reden will, aber das ist Teil des Plots.
Huh?
Can you tell me more about your craft? About demonology?
And why's that? Thinking about a career change?
I'm just curious.
Are you? I hope you do realize that demonology isn't a forbidden school for no reason. Most people who mess with it die. But sure, if you have questions, ask.
Let's start with the basics. What's the
Ich bin
core
noch
principle of
unsympathisch,
demonology?
da hast du nichts geändert.
It's simple. You study demons and their powers, and bind them to your will. And thus you gain access to their powers. Take a devourer. Once you've studied and subdued her to your will, you can access her strength. And I'm not talking about merely summoning her. You can channel her powers.
Interesting. Thanks for the insight.
Sure.
War kurz.
Ja.
Gut, ich würde sagen, nächste Folge machen wir weiter. Da gibt es auch ein klein wenig mehr Gerede und dann geht es aber auch weiter mit dem Plot. Also bis dahin. Ciao, ciao.
Dann ciao.